Hello sports fans, welcome to Spruce Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 6 NFL Power Rankings. So we'll start off by briefly recapping my rankings from last week and what those teams did in Week 5. Last week at number 10, I had the Colts. They destroyed the Raiders 40-6. Ninth was the Seahawks. They lost to the Buccaneers 38-35. 8th was the Buccaneers. They beat the Seahawks 38-35. 7th was the Chargers. They lost to the Commanders 27-10. 6th was the Packers. They were on a bye. Number 5, I had the Chiefs. They lost to the Jaguars 31-28. 4th was the Rams. They lost to the 49ers 26-23 in overtime. 3rd was the Lions. They beat the Bengals 37-24. 2nd was the Eagles, who lost to the Broncos 21-17. And at number 1, I had the Bills, and they lost to the Patriots 23-20. But getting into this week's rankings, beginning things at number 10, I've got the Seahawks. So the Seahawks, they drop a spot from number 9 to number 10 after they lost to the Buccaneers 38-35. And this was definitely a game the Seahawks should have won. They had their chance to go win the game late in the fourth quarter, but Sam Darnold threw an interception, which then put the Buccaneers in position for a game-winning field goal. But despite the loss, this was still a pretty solid game for the Seahawks. Their offense played well with 35 points, and their pass game was really good, as Sam Darnold threw for a season-high 341 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. And receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba also had a big game, with 8 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown, and he's now top 5 in both catches and yards so far this season. And then running the ball, the Seahawks, they were pretty good as well, as they ran for 122 yards and a touchdown on an average of 6.1 yards per carry. Now, the offense was good, the defense wasn't too great, allowing 38 points, and they could not stop the pass, allowing 370 passing yards. But overall, this wasn't a terrible game for the Seahawks, definitely a game they could have won, and because of that, I'm not going to punish them too much, because they lost a close game to a good team, so I'm only going to drop the Seahawks from number 9 to number 10. Coming in at number 9, I have the Jaguars. The Jaguars, they enter my top 10 for the first time this season, after they beat the Chiefs by a score of 31-28 on Monday Night Football. And this was a big win for the Jaguars, because it showed they're actually a pretty good team. Because coming into the week, I thought the Jaguars, they were solid, nothing too amazing, and I thought they had a good record because they had played a pretty easy schedule, but now that they beat the Chiefs, I do think this team is pretty good. But the Jaguars, they played well. Their offense looked great, scoring 31 points, and it's their first 30-point performance since Week 7 of last season. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence had a pretty good game. He did make some mistakes, turning the ball over twice, but he also made some big plays late in the game, such as running for the game-winning touchdown. But Trevor Lawrence, he finished the game with 221 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception, and also 54 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Now, running the ball for the Jaguars wasn't amazing, as they had just 55 rushing yards, not including the scrambles that Trevor Lawrence had, but overall the offense was pretty solid. Now, the defense was also solid, although they did allow 28 points and 476 total yards, but they did have that huge pick 6 in the fourth quarter. But this was a big win for the Jaguars. They're now 4-1 on the season, which is their best start since 2007, and I've got the Jaguars at number 9. Coming in at number 8, I've got the Rams. So the Rams, they drop a spot after they lost to the 49ers by a score of 26-23 in overtime. And this was not a great loss to the Rams, because they lost to a very banged-up 49ers team. And the Rams, they also had their chances to win this game, as in the second half alone, they missed a field goal, missed an extra point, and fumbled at the goal line. Plus, they also had an opportunity to win it in overtime, but they turned it over on downs. But overall, the offense for the Rams was okay. Matthew Stafford played a great game, throwing for 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. And the run game was okay, with 78 yards, although when they did run the ball, it was effective with 4.9 yards a carry. Now, the defense for the Rams wasn't very good. They allowed 26 points and 333 passing yards, with 49ers offense that was without their starting quarterback and their top 3 pass catchers. But not a great game for the Rams. They had their chance to win, but ended up falling short, and because of that, I've got the Rams falling to number 8. Number 7, I have the 49ers, obviously the team that beat the Rams. But this was a great win for the 49ers, because they were extremely banged up, and they still managed to be a very good Rams team. But the offense of the 49ers, they played well. Mac Jones had a great game, throwing for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the 49ers might have a quarterback controversy, because so far this season, Mac Jones has been better than Brock Purdy. Now, outside of Mac Jones, the rest of the offense was good, as Christian McCaffrey had a big game with 57 rushing yards, as well as 82 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. And when wide receiver Kendrick Bourne had a big breakout game with 10 catches for 142 yards. Now, the defense for the 49ers wasn't amazing, allowing 456 total yards and well over 300 passing yards, but they forced a couple turnovers, got some big stops late in the game, including the 4th down stop in overtime to seal the win. and the 49ers are now 4-1 after a nice win over the Rams, and I've got them at verse 7. Sixth, I have the Packers. The Packers, they've remained at verse 6. They're on a bye this week. Next week, they face the Bengals. Coming in at verse 5, I've got the Colts. So the Colts, they jump up to number 5 after they destroy the Raiders, winning 40-6. And this was a great bounce-back win for the Colts after they lost to the Rams last week. But the Colts, they played really well. Their offense scored 40 points for the second time this season, and overall, they had a great game. Daniel Jones threw for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jonathan Taylor continued to run the football effectively as he had 3 rushing touchdowns. And the Colts offense, they were also great in the red zone and on third down, scoring 6 touchdowns in 6 red zone trips, and they went 8 of 10 on third down. Then the defense of the Colts, they were great. They allowed just 6 points, did not allow a single touchdown, also got 4 sacks and forced 2 turnovers. But this was another really good win for the Colts, dominating a Raiders team who's not great, but it's still a pretty impressive win. And I'm actually starting to think this Colts team is pretty good, and not just a fluky start to the season, and that is why I've got the Colts up at number 5. Fourth, I have the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers, they move up to number 4 after they beat the Seahawks by a score of 38-35. And this was a great win for the Buccaneers. Their offense continued to play well, and Baker Mayfield continued to look like an MVP, as he threw for 379 yards and 2 touchdowns. And rookie receiver Emeka Egbuka continued his Rookie of the Year case, as he had a great game, catching 7 passes for 163 yards and got in the end zone. Now, while the pass game for the Buccaneers was great, they didn't run the ball too effectively, which is 56 rushing yards on 2.3 yards per carry, although they did run for 2 touchdowns. Now, defense with the Buccaneers, they weren't amazing, allowing 35 points and over 450 total yards, but they forced 2 turnovers, including a big interception late, which then allowed them to get into position for a game-winning field goal. But this is a good win for the Buccaneers, going on the road and beating a good Seahawks team, and I've got the Buccaneers at number 4. Number 3, I have the Eagles. So the Eagles, they fall a spot from number 2 to number 3, after they lost to the Broncos 21-17 for their first loss of the season. And this was another game for the Eagles where they did not play a complete game, as they were good in the first half, leading 10-3 at the half, and then after the first drive of the second half, they were up 17-3, but from that point on, they outscored 18-0. And this was not a great performance for the Eagles. The offense was okay, and they decided to throw the ball more this week to keep the receivers happy, but that wasn't a great idea. Now, the numbers through the air weren't terrible, as Jalen Hurts threw for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, and receiver Devontae Smith caught 8 passes for 114 yards. Now, the reason throwing the ball a lot didn't work is because they just didn't run the ball. They gave Saquon Barkley the ball 6 times over the course of the entire game, and in the entire game, the Eagles had just 11 rush attempts on the day. So definitely not ideal when you've got one of the best run games in the NFL. Now, the defense for the Eagles wasn't that bad. They were great in the first 3 quarters, but then they allowed 18 straight in the 4th quarter, and allowed the Broncos to come back and get the win. But not a great game for the Eagles. After their first loss season, I've got them falling to number 3. If you want to drop them a little bit further, I would understand it, but I've still got the Eagles at number 3. Second, I have the Bills. So the Bills, they also fall a spot after they also lost their first game of the season, losing to the Patriots by a score of 23-20. And the Bills did not play that well. Their offense scored a season-low 20 points, and it's actually their first game of the season where they didn't get to at least 30. But Josh Allen had a solid game, nothing too impressive, but definitely not terrible, as he threw for 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And tight end Dalton Kincaid had a good game, with 6 catches for 108 yards. Now, the run game for the Bills wasn't too great, as not including the Josh Allen scrambles, they ran for just 65 yards. And the Bills' offense, they also turned it over 3 times. Now, the defense of the Bills, they were okay. They were great in the first half, allowing just 6 points, but in the second half, they weren't great, allowing the Patriots to score on 3 of their 4 drives. And the defense, they also couldn't stop Stephon Diggs, who in his return to Buffalo caught 10 passes for 146 yards. But this was not a very good performance for the Bills, and after their first loss season, I've got them falling to number 2. And number 1, I've got the Lions. So the Lions, they move up to number 1 as a result of the Bills and Eagles both losing, but the Lions, they also have a pretty good week themselves, as they beat the Bengals by a score of 37-24. Now, the final score of this game might seem like it was very close, but the Lions, they were in control of this game the entire way, as they dominated and led 28-3 entering the 4th quarter. And the offense for the Lions, they played really well, putting up 37 points, and Jared Goff threw the ball well, throwing for 258 yards and 3 touchdowns. Receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown also had a nice game with 8 catches for 100 yards, and running back David Montgomery was great, rushing for 65 yards and a touchdown, and also throwing a touchdown. Then the defense of the Lions, they were also good. They did allow 24 points, although 21 of them came in the fourth quarter, when the game was pretty much over. In the defense, they also forced 3 turnovers. But after a good win for the Lions, they've now won 4 in a row after their Week 1 loss to the Packers, and have got the Lions up at number 1. But those are Week 6 NFL Power Rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.